do you see any possibility of that shifting, or do you think that change is going to have to come through other means and not through litigation or legislation?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are virtually no laws protecting animals inside factory farms. So there's that, unless you use the anti-cruelty statute, but you can't get in the farm to use the anti-cruelty statute. I mean, there's no one in there to enforce it. So, and as far as the Humane Methods of Slaughter Act, getting that enforced, big deal. They get a little slap on the wrist if they do something bad. I mean, there haven't been any penalties for that except for stopping the line for a short period of time. So I don't know what the answer to that is. I'm not really sure.
Marianne, what do you think as the animal law expert in the room?
There are a lot of people. I mean, this is the whole project of animal law is confronting the reality, which Gail just laid out, that cruelty laws may apply, but they're not enforced in any way whatsoever. And other statutes like the Humane Methods of Slaughter Act, individuals can't enforce that. It's up to the government. So what are you going to do? But there are a lot of lawyers who are just trying to get around this whole block that animals don't have any way of getting into court. I like to look at those cases and I like to think that there's hope there. I think one of the things that's happening is the work of direct action everywhere, where they're putting their investigators at actual risk of being arrested and then trying to get the word out through the trials of the humans. I mean, that's a high risk strategy because people end up going to prison. But that is their strategy. They're not fooling about it. There's some other people doing some interesting work. Legal impact for chickens is just the possibility of going after Alexander Farms under a cruelty statute. I can't remember their theory. They came up with some real, off the top of my head, really interesting theory under the particular state's law of how they can get it to court instead of leaving it up to the DA. So there are lawyers who are trying to overcome this huge failure of the law. And I always remind people that years and years ago, my friend David Wolfson wrote an article and about farm, before I knew anything about what was happening with farm animals. And the title of the article was Beyond the Law, because they are literally beyond the law. The law doesn't have any way to reach them. But lawyers are kind of trying to find interesting ways forward. Other things are like consumer protection law. When they lie about what they're doing to animals, they can be sued. You don't get that much if you win those cases. All you get is for them to stop lying and maybe some money. But still, it's a way to bring attention. All of these are just it's ridiculous. They're just like these tortured ways of getting around the legal reality, which is just an embarrassment. I mean, we have laws saying that it is a crime to cause an animal to suffer unnecessarily. I mean, that's a law in every state in this country. And look at what you've seen, Gail. I mean, look at what you've seen. There are animals suffering. There are animals being caused horrific pain everywhere all the time. It's completely and totally unnecessary. And yet it goes on. So the law's, kind of a joke, but that doesn't mean that we don't have to use it to the maximum extent we possibly can.
We do litigate a lot. In fact, we were really, really successful on the Rosebud Reservation, where a big factory farm was being put on tribal lands, and the tribe thought they wanted it until we convinced them otherwise. But we used NEPA to stop construction of what was going to be an operation that was producing 1 million pigs a year. So that was really successful.
Yeah. And NEPA, just to remind people, is the statute that requires you to do an environmental impact statement, which I assume they hadn't bothered to do, in spite of putting 1 million hogs onto land. Why would that have an impact on the environment?
And another example is in the hanging sows, where they're using the chain to hang the sows to suffocate them. That's a really interesting example. We did have a good prosecutor. That was like the first time we convinced somebody to prosecute a case, and he was very, very supportive. But unfortunately, the judge was a farmer.
Yeah,
So
that's the
he-
kind of, I mean, it's rural, what state was that in? I forget. That wasn't
that was
South
in
Dakota.
Ohio.
Okay.
Ohio.
Rural areas where hogs are raised, like who's going to be in the positions of power? It's going to be the people who own those factories.
Right. But I noticed that Animal Partisan has a petition before USDA that would enable us to use state anti-cruelty statutes inside slaughterhouses. So that's a
Yeah.
great thing.
Yeah, Will
Yeah.
Lowry, who runs Animal Partisan, I love their work. And that's really one of his particular causes is trying to because every cruelty law is a little different because all the states have different cruelty criminal laws, trying to find like different wording in different laws, cruelty laws that will allow him to bring those lawsuits. I really love the work he's doing.
Yeah, HFA, Humane Farming Association, is working with him on that incredible case in Wisconsin where Pure Prairie Poultry decided to go out of business and stop feeding 1.6 million chickens. So we're working with him on that case because that's clearly in violation of the abandonment and nourishment statutes. And so we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, that sounds like very exciting work, and he's a great lawyer, so that sounds very
So
promising.
as we start to close, Gail, before I know we're going to also do a Q&A with our flock, which I'm looking forward to, but as we start to close, I'm endlessly fascinated by the power of a book. And I'm just curious with this one, was there anything surprising to you in the process of putting it together?
The only surprising thing was that nobody wanted to publish it, especially the animal publisher that everybody talks about would not touch this book. And then I finally found a publisher that's anti-censorship, and it's a great publisher. It's very
Yeah,
well known.
Skyhorse is a great publisher.
Yeah, yeah. And so it took me 100 queries to get the book out there.
That's not so bad. I mean, I work in the book industry and like 100 queries and winding up with a book from Skyhorse is great.